So what is each Championship club's aim going into next season? Let's talk about it. So in today's video guys, we are going to be going through this tier list and assessing what we think each Championship club's realistic aim is going into next season. Now obviously we've still got plenty of time before now on the start of the season. These aren't predictions by any means, these are just what I get the vibe off each club at the moment of what they'll be hopeful to go ahead and achieve next season. And we're going to try and base this in realism because at the end of the day everyone wants to achieve automatic promotion, but it's not going to happen for each club. So these are the categories we're going to be putting each Championship club into. Are they just hoping for survival? Do they want to be comfy, top half playoffs, or automatic promotion? The realistic aims at your club right now, where would you personally place your club into? I'd be interested to know. Let's start out with a fairly straightforward one. Norwich, I think their aim is going to be automatic promotion. They are the masters at this level, and while it does feel like they aren't quite at that same level that they were at this time last time they were relegated, it does still feel like a group of players that has the know-how about this level, a manager who already has a promotion on his CV as well, and generally speaking a decent start to their summer recruitment as well with the introduction of Isaac Hayden. Still plenty to do at Norwich at this point in time, but I think it would be foolish to say their aim wouldn't be automatic promotion heading into next season. Next then, let's go for a survival one. I think that we'd probably have to chuck Birmingham in there at this point in time. There's still a lot of uncertainty around who will be pulling the strings at Birmingham next season. Will a takeover be sanctioned? Bassini is lurking about the club at the moment. A lot to discuss. Current playing squad though, how they finished last season, the finances at the club and their ability to actually improve on what they have at the moment. I think baseline for Birmingham is survival. That is the objective, primary so next season. Hopefully after that they can go ahead and build on it, but yeah, the main focus for Birmingham next season I think will be survival, if we're being honest. Sunderland's quite an interesting one because it's their first season back up in the Championship, and generally speaking each club's first season back in the Championship, you'd say the primary objective is just for survival, but dare I say it, maybe Sunderland have a bit loftier expectations than that really, you know. The amount of season tickets they sold, it is a massive club coming up to the Championship, and generally speaking, off the sort of players that they've been linked to so far. Now, it's one thing being linked to players, it's another thing actually getting those deals over the line, but it does feel as if Sunderland have that ambition that they won't want to be involved in amongst a relegation scrap next season, and they will look to properly sort of re-establish themselves in the Championship. When we did our 1-24 in terms of the current bookmakers odds, they've actually got Sunderland pipped for a top half finish at the moment, but I'll temper my expectations on them slightly. I'd say that their aim next season will be to be comfy in the Championship and not involved in any sort of relegation scraps, but who knows what could happen in that sense. Luton Town, really interesting one, coming off the back of a fantastic season. I think there's the argument that they were perhaps a little bit ahead of schedule with making the playoffs last season, and I certainly don't think that it would be seen as a failure if Luton weren't to get in the playoffs again. You know, it was a really competitive league in and amongst the top half. And I'd say that generally speaking, Luton's aim for next season will be to be in the top half, and then, you know, with a few game weeks to go of the season, if they are still within that playoff picture, I think the Luton fans would certainly take that. We've already seen a few moving parts from Luton in terms of incomings and outgoings as well. So I think top half will be the first focus for Luton, and then halfway through the season they'll probably go ahead and reassess that. Middlesbrough, a club straight away I'm going to chuck into the playoffs. Maybe if they pull off all the targets they're being linked to at the moment, Middlesbrough's aim might actually be automatic promotion, but as a baseline I think it has to be the top 6 for Borough next season. A full season under Chris Wilder, generally speaking, going off the players they're being linked to at the moment, if that Spence deal goes through, the money they'll actually have to go ahead and reinvest into the rest of that squad. The players they're being linked to, no questions for me, their aim will be the playoffs next season. Swansea finished 15th last season, and they had quite a few inconsistent patches, but towards the end of the season it did feel like they were getting into their flow under Russell Martin, and I think that next season their aim will be a top half finish, maybe even going on and pushing the playoffs, but that will probably depend on the deals they get over the line in the next few weeks before the season gets up and kicking. But it does feel like Swansea, heading into year 2 of of this project. They'll be looking for that clear progression, and I think that will be seen by a top half finish for them next season. West Brom, I think the pressure's definitely on for them to go ahead and get a top 6 finish as a bare minimum, really. Last season was a gross underachievement from West Brom, particularly when we pit them up against the other sort of parachute teams that we had in the Championship last season. West Brom were the obvious underachievers. Now, Steve Bruce has been given the reins there for another season to the debate of general Championship fans. It does seem as if he is going to get that back in. Already a really positive start to their summer recruitment with the introduction of John Swift, a lot of other high-profile Championship players that they've been linked to as well. If all goes well in this transfer window, then yeah, the top 6 has to be, I think, a minimum expectation for West Brom heading into next season, if we're being honest. With Cardiff, they've been the probably most busy Championship side out of everyone so far. It does feel as if this rebuild, which is being centred on a lot of young players at the moment, we will probably have to temper our expectations with Cardiff, because while there have been a lot of moving parts and players coming in and things like that, I think it will take them time to properly get the full process under Morrison underway. You know, he really only had sort of like just over half a season to get it right at Cardiff last season. So I think the expectation will be that Cardiff are comfy next season, and then heading into year 2 of Morrison's full proper season, then they'll be looking maybe to properly kick on. But with a squad rebuild and things like that, I think that their primary aim will be to be comfy next season. I'd say that Swansea may be just a little bit ahead of Cardiff in that aspect at the moment. Reading, I think it's fairly obvious at this point in time, their main goal for next season will be survival. They are one of the 3 tipped sides for relegation as of recording right now. Paul Ince, the manager there, they've lost a massive character in the dressing room in John Swift, and there could be some other pretty big departures there as well. They're limited in what they can do in terms of players incoming, so yeah, as a minimum, it's going to be survival next season for Reading, I think, as their priority. Sheffield United, another side who I think will want to be pushing in and around the top 2, but I think that as a minimum expectation for them, once again, it probably will be playoffs. They were sort of handicapped last season, really, by the poor start they got off to under Jokanovic, because since Heckingbottom came in the second half of the season, or thereabouts, they were generally averaging a similar sort of points per game to both Bournemouth and Fulham. So if they do that over a full season, then we would expect them to be there or thereabouts in the promotion picture. But yeah, as a minimum, once again for Sheffield United, I think it will be the top 6 for them. Expectations for Blackburn Rovers, I'd say probably top half for them, although a lot depends on what happens with Brereton Diaz and how that money is then redistributed to the rest of the squad, because we have already seen some big departures in that squad. And if Brereton Diaz, you know, we've already seen Lenihan leave, we've seen Joe Rothwell leave. If Brereton leaves on top of that, then maybe Blackburn temper their expectations a little bit for next season. I'm really excited about their new manager, but there's so many moving parts at Blackburn at the moment that maybe the expectations do drop a little bit if they do go into a full rebuilding process. They're quite a hard side to nail down at the moment, Blackburn. I think they're between these 2 categories here, but that very much depends on what happens with Brereton Diaz. If they keep hold of him, I think expectations is top half. If they sell him and then look to redistribute that into the rest of the squad, then I think their main focus will be to be comfy and then properly kick on next season. So yeah, Blackburn, tough call at the moment. Rovers fans, what would you say your expectations are heading into next season? If we go off Coventry's general trajectory over their time under Mark Robbins, then they'll be looking to be there or thereabouts in the playoff picture. I think as a baseline, Coventry will be targeting a top half finish, and similar to what we were saying about Luton as well, they'll probably reassess it sort of halfway through the season, take stock of where they are, and if they do have a realistic shot at the top 6 come January, maybe they go ahead and add that extra injection with some deals in January. But they were there or thereabouts in terms of the playoff picture last season, and I think that the objective for them will be fairly similar this time around as well. Michael Beale coming in at Queen's Park Rangers. I think their expectations off the bat will probably be top half, looking maybe to go on for a playoff push, but once again this depends on recruitment, and QPR have quite a few unknowns around them as well. You know, Beale, this being his first job, we want to see what sort of level he's at. The recruitment that QPR have already got underway this season as well has already been pretty promising, and I think they will be, once again, in and amongst the playoffs, but I think as a baseline of expectation, it'll be top half for QPR. Stoke have been the perennial underachievers in the Championship, and we say this about them every year, but I think the baseline expectations of Stoke will be a top half finish. The squad they have there is more than capable of that. The players that they're looking likely to add to that squad this summer as well. There have been conflicting opinions over whether it was right or not to keep O'Neill on for another season. You know, it was another bottom half finish for Stoke last season, which is a massive underachievement given the resources they've got at the club there compared to some of the other teams they're up against. But once again, I think the aim for Stoke has to be playoffs next season. Is it going to happen? Probably not, judging by their previous track record, but I think that's what they'll realistically have their sights set on. Watford, I think similar to Norwich, are the two sides we're looking at the moment where from the start of the season the blueprint will be for automatic promotion. It's tough to speak on Watford at the moment though, because their squad is looking particularly thin in quite a few areas. If they do lose the players that they are expected to, it seems like they're waiting for those players to leave first before they get their proper business underway. So until that happens, we can't really make a judgment on them, but at this time you'd expect the owners will be wanting them to be in and amongst the top two, and I think that Norwich and Watford at the moment are the obvious candidates for that being their expectations at the moment. Huddersfield, tough one to judge. I don't think it would be seen as a failure next season if they weren't to make it into the top six. You know, they were punching above their weight, and I think that they were way ahead of schedule in a similar way to Luton actually, that they actually got over the line and into the top six, but more than deserved. Unbelievable unbeaten run they went on, and Carlos Corberán really managed to go ahead and galvanise that squad. What happens with Lewis O'Brien though this season, maybe some expectations are tempered a little bit, and I think that as a baseline, similar to Luton, it'll be top half finish with a view to look to challenge in and amongst the top six. But with Huddersfield, it probably depends on the strength of their squad next season, what happens with O'Brien, and generally speaking, the strength of the rest of the top six as well, because we do expect there to be quite a few moving plates around Huddersfield next season. Burnley under Vincent Kompany, what are their expectations? I think it probably will be playoffs, you know. Obviously, we have more teams in here now than can actually make the top six, and obviously some teams will fall short of their expectations. That's the point of this video, but I do think that Burnley will probably have their sights set on a top six finish. Whether that will happen or not, I'm not so sure. Vincent Kompany has got a lot of spinning plates at the moment. I think there's more unpredictability around Burnley, more so than Norwich and Watford at the moment. They are a little bit of a wild card, not only because of Vincent Kompany and the unknowns that surround him, but the playing squad as well. The finances that are there or that aren't there for Burnley to invest this summer, and the players that we also expect to leave as well. With all that said, they are a parachute team in the first year back down in the Championship. I don't think they make the appointment of someone like a Vincent Kompany if the immediate aim isn't to be in and amongst the top six. Preston North End under Ryan Lowe. Right now, with our playing squad, you'd say comfy, but I think it will be with a look to push on into the top half, particularly with some of the players that we've been linked to in this transfer window so far. It does seem very positive, especially when we compare the mood around Preston from this time last year to right now. It's absolutely night and day in terms of the recruitment, the general players we seem to be targeting, the relationship between the club and the fans, you know, record season ticket sales and things like that. I think Preston are, dare I say it, gearing up for a decent season, albeit we've still got a hell of a lot to do with the recruitment. So once again, between comfy and top half, but I'll give us the benefit of the doubt. I think we'll be looking for a top half finish next season under Ryan Lowe with his first full season in charge. Hull City, they have been linked to absolutely every player under the sun in this transfer market so far, and they're tough to make a judgment on at the moment because we're not sure what deals they'll actually go ahead and get over the line. Right now, you'd probably say comfy is their bare minimum expectations for next season. I don't think they'll be looking to be in and amongst relegation battle, but should they get even half of the players they're targeting at the moment over the line, then you'd probably say top half is even maybe the expectation at Hull next season. This one is very much dependent on how much money they actually drop in this transfer window, because if they drop a substantial amount, like they very well could, then I think the expectation is top half. If they're a little bit more cautious with the money, then I think comfy is the bare minimum for Hull. But we'll revisit this video in about a month or so and see how the expectations have changed at some clubs, because Hull could definitely be one of those where they shoot up in terms of expectations if they do spend a lot of money like they might. For Rotherham, the expectations I think are fairly obvious. It's got to be survival this season as the primary focus for Rotherham, something they've just not been able to stick over their last few stays in the Championship. Hull Warren now, though, knows the league. The vast majority of the squad they had together during their last Championship campaign as well, where they did have spells of being competitive. It was just a case of maybe with the COVID stuff that eventually caught up with them, and a lack of quality at times at both ends of the pitch. But it's a new Rotherham coming up this season. The main aim has to be survival for them, though. I'd probably chuck Wigan into survival as well, but I do think that Wigan have a lot of potential upside for next season. You know, it's a good squad, it's a good group of players they've got together at the moment, and there does seem to be funds there available to go ahead and improve that squad as well. We'll wait and see what the recruitment is actually like. A good young manager. There's a lot of upside that potentially, if they do nail down the recruitment, maybe Wigan's expectations do surpass simply surviving and we get into comfy territory. But right now, I think that Wigan's main focus for next season will be survival, and then to push on from that point onwards. Bristol City, where to place them at this point in time? My instinct says comfy, but I've been really impressed actually with the business that they've already managed to nail down. The fact that they've rejected a bid already for Semenyo as well shows that they're keen to keep this current group together, particularly that forward three who were so deadly throughout last season. If they can nail down some consistency, get a little bit more cohesion in their back line, and they have added to those defensive positions, then I think the expectations probably do rise a little bit at Bristol City heading into next season. I still have some doubts over them in terms of, you know, consistency defensively. How reliable will they be, and is Pearson the right man to go ahead and knit this all together? But with that front three, the recruitment so far, I think the expectations probably do rise a little bit at Bristol City next season. So once again, Bristol City, another side who I'm between these two, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and I'll say that maybe it will be a top half finish that they are looking to target heading into next season. Millwall's a bit of a tough one. Obviously, the loss of Jed Wallace, as it looks as of recording, is a massive one for Millwall. It does seem as if there are funds to go ahead and invest in this squad as of recording right now. They've not got any of those targets over the line, and they also have the loan players to go ahead and replace who played a vital role in that side last season as well. They've got some good youngsters coming up through the team at the moment, and Rowett has proven to be a reliable manager, you know, consecutively getting them in and amongst the playoff picture and in the top half as well. But with that loss of Wallace, maybe the expectations fall off slightly for Millwall, where it's not at bare minimum expected to be a top half finish, and it is a little bit comfy, and maybe there is a little bit more of a rebuild coming at Millwall. But once again, between these two for Millwall, if I'm being honest. And then finally with Blackpool, now had Neil Critchley still been at the helm, I mean, straight away I'd have Blackpool in comfy, maybe even pushing on to be top half, to be honest. They proved themselves to be competitive in the Championship last season, and with Critchley there, it seems as if they were only going to go on from strength to strength. With his departure, though, and Appleton coming in, it does leave a significantly bigger question mark over them as a club at the moment. Maybe to the point of which where their automatic aim for next season does go back to being survival. You know, second season in the Championship is a bit of a funny one really, because we've seen some clubs go from strength to strength and fly up the league, and we've seen some clubs regressing downwards, and potentially that could be the case. Blackpool are in a bit of an awkward situation whereby they still have a little bit of a hangover from the Oyston era, because it does seem like the prerogative at the club is to improve the facilities, you know, the training ground, the stadium, the infrastructure around the club. And while that absolutely is the right thing to do long term, short term, it could be a little bit of a hindrance to what actually happens on the pitch. You know, with it looking maybe increasingly likely that Bowler will leave, maybe another sale in that squad as well. How much money is then available for Appleton, an unproven manager pretty much at this level, to go ahead and reinvest into the squad? I'm not sure with Blackpool. I'm between comfy and survival survival. I'd say at this point in time, as of recording, the main aim probably will be on survival, and then for them to take it from that point onwards. But there we have it, guys. That right there is what I see as each Championship club's realistic expectations as of recording heading into next season. Now, I will do an updated version of this before the season gets underway and when we have had some more transfer business done as well, because expectations change when players get sold or players get signed, and I certainly think that'll be the case with a few clubs in today's tier list. You know, I'm looking at Hull especially in that one. If they do get some big targets over the line, their expectations will absolutely fly up. But as of recording, that's what I'm thinking. Let me know down below if you massively disagree with any of these picks right here for expectations next season. Obviously, not every club can achieve their expectations. That's the point of it. But if you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. Apart from that, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.